What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. Today I wanted to talk about the thing that everyone is talking about, one of the most divisive games in the gaming industry, probably one of the most divisive games that we'll probably have in our entire lifetime, and that is Death Stranding. Now, caveat for this video, I've played about 10 hours of it. I am not going to finish it. I am not going back to it. I have no desire to go back and finish this game. I don't like it whatsoever. And obviously that's going to mean that this video may be, well, it will be negative towards the game, but I mean, that's just my thoughts on this. I know some people do love it, but I have had no fun with this. It's extremely boring to me. So I want to talk about it. I wanted to talk about the reviews because they've been very confusing. And I feel like Kojima gets sort of an unfair positive bias for this game, especially in the reviews. And I want to talk about what came out today when he said that the reason he thinks that it isn't getting the best critical review in North America and in the United States is because Americans like first-person shooters. Now, firstly, starting with this article here. So this is what he has to say. I must say, the game received rave reviews, especially in Europe and Japan. Well, not a big surprise that it's receiving rave reviews, especially in Japan, with how loved he is. Here in the United States, however, we have had strong criticisms. Perhaps it is a difficult game to understand for certain types of critic and audience. Americans are great fans of first-person shooters, and Death Stranding isn't one. It flies higher. So I mean, he's pretty much saying that Americans are too dumb to understand the games that he puts out. I mean, if you really dig deep into it, that's kind of what he's saying. He's saying that his games, they transcend gaming, they transcend your intellectual thought, that it'll be harder for Americans to understand. That's why they stick to first-person shooters and games that don't require that much thinking. Now, this quote is kind of interesting because it's really easy to counter the reason why it's receiving more critical reviews in the United States. Like, if you just go to IGN, which is probably the biggest, I don't know if it's the biggest, but one of the biggest video game reviewers in the United States specifically, like, it's a site that gets so much traffic. If you just look at the games that have gotten 9s recently, just recently, for example, Disco Elysium. This is definitely not a first-person shooter. It's the furthest thing from a first-person shooter. Receives a 9.6, probably one of the best reviewed games this year in 2019. Could be up for Game of the Year. You never know. I haven't played this game. Definitely a game that I'm interested in trying. I've had friends who have played it and they've absolutely loved it, saying it is their Game of the Year right now. So that is not a first-person shooter. Then you have Asgard's Wrath, which is a VR game. It's an action RPG game. So I guess that's probably closer to what Americans like. Then you have Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening. Definitely not a first-person shooter. Game that I just recently beat and is one of my favorite games of the year. Then you go down here, you have Gears 5 third-person shooter. You have Borderlands 3, which is a first-person shooter. Then you have a very popular Japanese game that is also very popular in North America, Monster Hunter World. And this is the expansion, Iceborne. Got a 9 out of 10. Then you have Platinum Games Astral Chain, which is a Japanese game, gets a 9 out of 10. So we could go on and on and on and show that there are many games that get really good reviews that aren't first-person shooters. So his statement is clearly false. Now, going back to the game, as you can see, I am a little bit not worked up, but this game really annoys me in a sense because it was released on November 8th, and there were tons of reviews that came out November 1st, November 2nd, about a week before the game actually came out. And they were the most confusing things that I have ever read in a game review, I think in a very, very long time. Not only because they criticized the game, but then gave it a really good review. And the things that they criticized were like vital for making a game good. So there's tons of examples out there, but I just went and found a few examples that I had readily available to me just to show you what I mean as an example. So here's the one from PlayStation Lifestyle. This one is very mind-blowing in a sense. Death Stranding is not a fun game. Now, in my opinion, games are good if they're fun. When I play a video game, my main goal is to have fun. It isn't to watch a movie. It isn't to have the most in-depth intellectual thought. I mean, I do like games that do that as long as they have good gameplay mechanics and they're fun. But the main goal for a video game for me is to have a good time and to have fun. Death Stranding is not a fun game. It's an important and meaningful experience that earns its payoff through every bit of frustration and slog. So it's a meaningful experience, but you're going to be frustrated and you're going to have to slog through the game to get this experience. It's a look at life and death, connection and solitude, a game about building up what matters most and supporting each other selflessly. A great message for a game to have, especially in 2019. You'll be bored at times, okay, and downright frustrated at others, but it comes with a great reward at the end that is made sweeter by the trials that precede it. So it obviously goes on. It's a much longer review, but this is a quote from the review saying that the game isn't fun, it's boring, but it has a great message, so 95 out of 100. That to me blows my mind. Next review. Death Stranding is not an especially fun game, again, the main thing in games. It's tedious at times, frustrating at others, and can feel like one of the biggest gaming slogs. Now, we can keep going on, but a lot of the reviews that came out, especially before the game was actually released, had stuff like this in it, that it wasn't fun, it was boring. A lot of people mentioned how bad the user interface was, and I can attest that it's terrible. But because it was a good experience with a story that was uplifting and had interesting characters, it's getting 9s out of 10s and 10s out of 10s. So it just really blows me away how this is happening. And this leads me to believe that, honestly, I think Kojima gets a very unfair positive bias when it comes to games because of Metal Gear Solid. Now, Metal Gear Solid, the series itself, is one of the most confusing stories out there, but the game is actually pretty good. It's a fun game. It's a lot of people recognize Metal Gear Solid as one of the best series of all time. It's not one of the best series of all time for me. I did enjoy them. I haven't played them all, but from what I did play, I did enjoy them. I found the story to be confusing, but it was like a story that was confusing, but you wanted to see what happened next to see if you could figure it out. And I found Metal Gear Solid way better than Death Stranding. Like, it's not even close. And there's so much fishiness that's going on with this game, because not saying that he paid reviewers before the game was released to give it good reviews, because some people have played it honestly, and you can tell that they are just enthralled by the actual gameplay loop that it offers, even though it's extremely boring, maybe because it's completely different. I think that as a game experience, it could be great. I think this, as a game experience, it could be a great experience if it wasn't like a 50-hour long game. If this was a much shorter game, I think it would have been incredible, because the story itself is something that I would be interested in seeing what happens. I'm not gonna lie, I would love to see what happens at the end, but there is no way I'm gonna be able to play through 50 hours of this game just to see what happens, because you're pretty much walking from one location to the other in order to see a cutscene to see what happens next. And that's not something that I want to do, not something that I have the time to do, not something that I will go towards instead of playing something else. And that's the problem for me with this game. It's that the gameplay mechanics aren't there. They are boring. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care that if they say 15 hours in it gets incredible. I don't believe it from all the stuff that I've seen. I haven't played 15 hours, I played 10, but I don't believe it from what I've been reading and seeing further on into the game. It looks virtually the exact same with a little bit extra elements. The user interface is terrible. It's not fun to use, and it's just a game that keeps you frustrated and you slog through it. And the fact that it's getting so many good reviews is just a little bit mind-blowing to me. One of the reviews that is crazy that people, I don't know how this isn't getting more attention. It is now, I guess, but the Famitsu cameo in the game is the editor-in-chief. And Famitsu, if you don't know, is the massive video game magazine in Japan, one of the most recognized, reviews everything, one of the most read and viewed and everything. So them giving a game 40 out of 40 is like huge, because I think they've only given like 25 or something like that. Not many games have gotten that 40 out of 40, and this is one of them. And they always give, obviously, Metal Gear really good scores, and anything Kojima touches, amazing scores. And there's a cameo in the game, so I'm gonna just try to find it here. So it's Hamamura. He is a cameo he's the editor-in-chief at Famitsu, and he says something in the game. If it's translated into English, that means get in the Hall of Fame, Famitsu's name for high scoring review. So he's telling Sam, who is the main character in the game, translated into English, that the game is going to get into the Hall of Fame because it gets a high score from Famitsu. I mean, if that's not telling you something, I don't know what is. It's crazy the people that are still defending it for this kind of stuff, and that again just blows me away. It's just a game that definitely is frustrating. It has definitely elements that set it apart from other games because they're new, and it's not something you see in games every single day. It has a kind of a new gameplay loop, but it's boring as hell. And I just think that because Kojima's name is on it, people are making so many excuses for what this is. If this was any other developer, this was any other name on the game, they would say, has a great story, the gameplay is boring, the UI sucks, it is definitely not a 10 out of 10 or a 9 out of 10, probably a 6 out of 10. Now, one of the best reviews out there, and I wouldn't say this very often because I don't ever think IGN usually gives the best reviews for games, but one of the best reviews out there is definitely the IGN review. It's one of the only reviewers that was, if you listen to him, he recognizes that there is potential in this game, that there is an incredible story behind it of uplifting and things like that. But the things that make a game fun, which is the gameplay, easy access UI, the gameplay loop, just a world that isn't bare, isn't there. Therefore, the game does not even come close to a 10 out of 10, and he gave it a 6.8 out of 10, which is very reasonable, I think, for this game. I think a 6.8 is the sweet spot, a 6 or 7 max for Death Stranding. I could go on and on about this. As you can see, it's very annoyed. Maybe I'm just not smart enough to understand the game. Maybe this game is way too high intellectually for me. I don't know. I don't know what the deal is. I just think it is not a very good game. I think it's more of an experience that can easily be experienced by watching cutscenes on YouTube and not having to put yourself through the pain of slogging through this game from beginning to end. This is just what I think about this. I am sure there's going to be lots of people out there, if they watch this video, that completely disagree with me, that think that I'm not smart enough to understand this game. That's why I don't like it. Let me know if you guys have played Death Stranding in the comments below. I would love to know your thoughts on Death Stranding, if you liked it, and if you agree or disagree with my thoughts on the game. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that thumbs up button, subscribe if you're new to this channel, and I'll catch you in the next video.